Edinburgh in the 1700s stood as one of Europe's most remarkable cities, a place of profound contradictions. Here, intellectual brilliance flourished alongside grinding poverty, and architectural splendour rose from medieval squalor. This was the century that would earn Edinburgh its reputation as the Athens of the North, yet it was also a city struggling to emerge from centuries of chaos. Thanks to advanced AI technology, we can now reconstruct these historic scenes with extraordinary detail. By analysing authentic 18th century engravings, paintings and architectural records, we're able to show Edinburgh as it truly appeared during this transformative era. The cobblestone streets, towering tenements, bustling markets, and the people who shaped the Scottish Enlightenment all brought back to life with unprecedented accuracy, allowing us to step back nearly 300 years and experience the city as Edinburghers once knew it. This is an extraordinary view of Edinburgh from Calton Hill in the early 1700s, looking west toward the castle. What you're witnessing is a city still confined within its medieval walls, a pressure cooker of humanity forced to build upward rather than outward. Dominating the skyline is Edinburgh Castle, perched on its volcanic plug of Castle Rock, a fortress that has controlled this strategic position for over 1,000 years. Notice how the city clings to the ridge between the castle and Holyrood Palace, this single spine of land known as the Royal Mile. The old town rises in layers of stone, with buildings reaching 10, 12, even 14 stories, making them among the tallest residential structures in the world at this time. These towering tenements called lands were home to a uniquely Scottish social experiment. Unlike London or Paris, where the rich and poor lived in separate districts, Edinburgh's vertical architecture forced all classes to share the same buildings. Nobles occupied the middle floors, the best balance of accessibility and air quality, while the poor lived in the attics and cellars. The smoke from thousands of coal fires mingles with the morning mist, creating the perpetual haze that gave Edinburgh its nickname, Auld Reekie, Old Smoky. This view captures Edinburgh at a crucial moment, just decades before the new town would transform the city forever. This is the Royal Mile in the mid-1700s, the beating heart of Edinburgh and one of the most densely populated streets in Europe, stretching from the castle down to Holyrood Palace. This ancient thoroughfare is barely wide enough for 2 carts to pass. The tall stone buildings on either side create a canyon of shadow, where sunlight reaches the street for only a few hours each day. Look closely at these extraordinary structures. Each land is essentially a vertical village, housing anywhere from 30 to 50 families. The ground floors are occupied by merchants and craftsmen, their signs hanging above doorways advertising everything from wig makers to goldsmiths. The closes, those narrow alleyways branching off the Royal Mile, plunge into darkness between the buildings. These passages bear names that tell stories: Advocates' Close, where lawyers had their chambers, or Flesh Market Close, where butchers once sold their meat. The street itself is a marketplace in constant motion. Highland drovers bring cattle through the city gates. Fishwives from New Haven carry their baskets up from the port. Sedan chairs navigate through the crowds, transporting those who can afford not to walk through the filth. This is commerce, governance, and daily life compressed into a single medieval street, still functioning much as it had for 500 years. Now we arrive at Parliament Close, the political and legal centre of Scotland in the early 1700s. The imposing building you see is Parliament House, where the Scottish Parliament met until the Act of Union in 1707 merged Scotland's government with England's. This moment, just decades after that controversial union, remains one of deep resentment for many Scots who felt their nation had been betrayed. The magnificent structure features Christopher Wren-influenced architecture, though built by Scottish masons. That distinctive crown steeple belongs to St Giles Cathedral, often called the High Kirk, the spiritual heart of Presbyterian Scotland. For 2 centuries, this church was the stage for John Knox's fiery sermons that shaped Scotland's religious identity. The square is always crowded with advocates in their wigs and gowns, debating outside the courts between sessions. The Court of Session, Scotland's supreme civil court, operates from these very chambers. Notice the taverns surrounding the square, establishments like Johnny Dowie's, where lawyers, writers, and philosophers gather after dark to drink claret and debate the ideas that will fuel the Scottish Enlightenment. This single square represents the collision between Scotland's proud independent past and its uncertain future within the British Union. This is the Grassmarket in the 1740s, a rectangular plaza at the base of Castle Rock that serves multiple purposes for the city. By day, it's Edinburgh's main livestock market and trading hub. Farmers from the surrounding Lothians bring their sheep, cattle, and grain to sell. The inns lining the square, like the White Hart Inn, provide lodging for country folk who've travelled to the city. But the Grassmarket has a darker purpose. That wooden structure you see at the eastern end is the gallows. Public executions draw enormous crowds here, sometimes thousands of spectators. The condemned are brought down from the Tolbooth prison on the Royal Mile, processing through the streets in what amounts to a final public spectacle. The most famous execution spot in Scotland. This is where over 100 Covenanters were hanged in the 1680s for their religious beliefs, martyrs who refused to accept the king's authority over the Presbyterian Church. The castle looms directly overhead, its guns pointing down into the Grassmarket, a permanent reminder of royal power and authority. The juxtaposition is stark. Commerce and death, punishment and profit, all sharing the same public space in the brutal reality of 18th century justice. We now stand on the shore at Leith, Edinburgh's vital port town, just 2 miles north of the city. Leith is Scotland's gateway to the world, where ships arrive from the Baltic bringing timber and grain, from the Low Countries with fine cloth, and from the colonies with tobacco and sugar. The harbour is crowded with merchant vessels, their masts creating a forest of wood against the sky. The shore, as this waterfront area is known, is lined with warehouses storing goods bound for Edinburgh and beyond. Notice the distinctive gabled buildings, many with Dutch architectural influence, evidence of Scotland's long trading relationship with the Netherlands. Leith Walk, the road connecting this port to Edinburgh, is constantly busy with carts hauling cargo between ship and city. The wine merchants of Leith are particularly prosperous. French wine and brandy flow through this port despite Britain's wars with France. Smuggling is a gentleman's profession here. The famous Trinity House building serves as a guild hall for mariners, where ship captains gather to share news from distant ports. Leith represents Edinburgh's commercial ambitions, the trade that brings wealth to fuel the city's transformation into a centre of learning and culture. This is Holyrood Palace in the early 1700s, the official royal residence in Scotland, though rarely visited by the Hanoverian monarchs who rule from London. The palace sits at the eastern end of the Royal Mile, backed by the dramatic cliffs and crags of Arthur's Seat, an extinct volcano that towers over the city. The Baroque facade you see was rebuilt in the 1670s for Charles II, though he never actually lived to see it completed. The palace holds dark memories. In the northwestern tower, Mary Queen of Scots witnessed the brutal murder of her secretary David Rizzio in 1566. Those very rooms remain, bloodstains reportedly still visible on the floor. By the 1700s, Holyrood serves as the residence for the Duke of Hamilton, representing the absent monarch, and as a sanctuary for debtors. Under Scottish law, the Holyrood Abbey grounds provide sanctuary from arrest for debt, creating a community of aristocratic refugees living in the palace precincts, unable to leave without facing imprisonment. It's a peculiar arrangement, a royal palace doubling as a debtor's haven. The ruined abbey adjacent to the palace, destroyed during the Reformation, stands as a reminder of Scotland's turbulent religious history. Its Gothic arches, open to the sky, frame Arthur's Seat in the distance, creating one of Edinburgh's most haunting and romantic views. This is Edinburgh University in the mid-1700s, though it doesn't look like the grand institution it will become. The original college buildings are modest, clustered around Kirkhoe Field, the very spot where Mary Queen of Scots' husband Lord Darnley was murdered in 1567. But appearances deceive, because within these walls something extraordinary is happening. Edinburgh University is becoming the intellectual powerhouse of Europe. The medical school is training students who will revolutionise surgery and anatomy. The philosophy faculty is producing thinkers like David Hume, whose sceptical empiricism will reshape Western thought. Adam Smith lectures here on moral philosophy before writing The Wealth of Nations, the book that will invent modern economics. The students you see are a mixture of Scottish landowners' sons, English dissenters barred from Oxford and Cambridge, and international scholars drawn by Edinburgh's reputation. Unlike the ancient English universities, Edinburgh teaches in English rather than Latin, and focuses on practical knowledge rather than classical learning. The medical students attend anatomy demonstrations that will make Edinburgh the foremost medical training centre in the world. This convergence of brilliant minds in a relatively small city will create the Scottish Enlightenment, an explosion of intellectual achievement that seems impossible from such an improbable location. Edinburgh in the 1700s is simultaneously medieval and modern, squalid and brilliant, a city of profound contradictions giving birth to the modern world. History has preserved remarkable visual records of these historic cities through paintings, engravings, and architectural drawings. Each one is a window into a lost world, waiting to be reconstructed and understood. So tell us in the comments, which city would you like to see brought back to life next? Your choice could shape our next journey through time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the past.